careers and to help lay foundations to have great careers. And you have to go about it two different ways. So you have to have a great medical staff in place so they can accomplish both of those tasks, because they both involve two different game plans. So now with 15 different players that are different stages of their careers, you have to have a staff in place that it can accomplish both of those and get them done at the same time, in the same gym. And so having the ability to have different game plans for every player on what they need to be successful in place, I think is something the league's going in the right direction of. But I think that certainly a lot of teams could do a better job of.
Can we give a big shout out to Chelsea Lane?
Sure. Shout out Chelsea Lane.
She does an amazing job. VP of Athletic Performance and Sports Medicine. I only bring that up because those are the people behind the scenes that people don't really know about. And she's a big part of keeping guys healthy and keeping them, what Travis just said, keeping them fresh and ready and growing their bodies and all of that stuff. So she's been a big part of that, and I know that she's happy to be here as well. Hey, let me ask you this, and then we're going to give you some brew, all right? Just as a gift. It's a parting gift. You only get one, all right? You get to rank them, but I'm going to give you the best trios, and I want you to give me the top one, okay? So the best trios in NBA history. Are you going with Pierce, Garnett, Allen? Hold your thought.
I was going to say no.
Okay.
But I'll hold it.
No, that's fine. You know what? Screw it. Go ahead and answer these. All right. Pierce, Garnett, Allen.
No.
Are you going with LeBron, Wade, Bosh?
No.
Are you going with Bird, McHale, Parrish?
I'll hold my to see who the other list is.
Are you going with Magic, Kareem, Worthy?
Oh, that's tough.
Stay there. Are you going with Jordan, Pippen, Rodman?
I'm going to go with those guys, but I'm a child of the 90s as well.
Okay. Are you going with Curry, Durant, and Clay?
I should go with those guys. They put some money in my bank account for those championships. But I'm gonna stick with the Bulls. Again, I grew up. I mean, I was in my formative years with the group that was together, and we had 13 channels where I grew up in Western Kansas, and one of them happened to be WGN. So I got to watch a lot of the Bulls games, and Mike didn't miss shots in the fourth, man. He was unbelievable. So I'm going to go with those guys. I think when you look at what they were athletically, those guys, what they were able to do defensively, that those other groups you talked about, they didn't have. And there's some good groups on there. But I would certainly go Chicago. Durant, Clay, and Steph, I would do just from an emotional standpoint,
sure.
too.
Yeah, a sentimental standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's not kid ourselves. A financial standpoint, they get number 2.
Yeah, Jordan, man, here's a Jordan story for you. In the limited access and time, because at his height, and it's hard to tell people this now, like LeBron's huge. This is prior to social media. When the Bulls came to town or they were on the road, especially that 96, it was like the Beatles. And I tell people, like, being in sports at that time and following that team, and for me, Rodman, in that mid-'90s where he had been in San Antonio and I was there covering the team, and then I ended up leaving and going to another market, Denver, and then coming back to Houston. Rodman and I, to be quite honest, because I was like the only brother that was covering the media at that time, the only black guy, he kind of, took a sense to me, or at least an attraction as far as, being willing and able to talk. He really didn't talk a lot. And he was a guy at that point that was making that transition. He had gone through that kind of crazy phase where he's dyeing his hair and we used to call him the Demolition Man back then. And Rodman, literally, this is how crazy he was back then. And Pop, to be quite honest, in my opinion, I have never been told this, really didn't like him. But he was a guy that could go out and get you 20 boards any game he wanted. And so when he made the move to the Bulls, I was like, it's a wrap. Because if you can get him focused, people forget how good Dennis Rodman is. They just came out with, I think, a 30 for 30 on him. But there was a time where, like one day I challenged him. We were at shoot-around, and I said, how many boards are you going to get tonight? And he was like, And I was like, I bet you can't get 20. And he got 20 like it was candy. So he was so talented in that area. But when he went to the Bulls, I'm with you. But the Jordan story is this. I'm interviewing Mike after a game, and Mike says he's talking about, I think he's averaging 35 or whatever it is at the time. And I was so fascinated at how easy he made getting 35 a night looked. And I said, Mike, how difficult is it to continue to score, 35, 38 points a night or whatever it is? And he looks right at me and he goes, it's only 4 baskets a quarter. And he made it sound so simplistic, like, you dumbass, right? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. It is only 4 baskets a quarter. But his thing was, and then he continued, and he said, he's always said this, if I felt like we were close in the fourth quarter, it was a done deal. Like, if I had a team within 6 or 8 points, we were going to finish the game. But he would play, and you'd look up, and he'd have 8 in the first quarter. By halftime, he'd have 16. And then by the time you got to the fourth quarter, he'd be on that verge of 30, and depending on how the game went. So, Travis, I'm with you. That's my number one trio as well. He was amazing. But Pippen was too. And then when you add Rodman that took so much pressure off them defensively and rebounding-wise. I love all these other guys, and I'm a big Magic fan. But the Jordan, Pippen, Rodman thing was – and if they stayed together, they win 2 more?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to me, what people – underestimate because of Jordan's offensive game was just how good those guys were defensively. I mean, Scottie Pippen was a bull Doberman out there. Michael, all NBA defense every single year. And then we talked about Rodman came in the league with the Pistons. Like, he was a defensive specialist. They had him playing the 3. He
didn't have to shoot,
boys.
Did he?
Yeah, the old bad boys. They just let Isaiah and Joe Dumars do all the scoring, and he just went out there and beat people up.
Well, this is some Hey Man Ale. Kind of a big deal, Travis. Dukes and Bell Hey Man Ale. This is from Oconee Brewing Company. This is a special brew. You guys know, if you're listening and you're a fan of the show or a fan of mine, how much we talk about the beer. But it's a blonde ale, but it has an IPA to it. So it does. It's a little hoppy. So, the principle behind this was we wanted a beer that obviously, men and women alike could enjoy. But we also wanted something that the beer snobs like yourself, Travis, would enjoy. Because, we get that. Guys are like, yeah, I don't drink anything but IPAs. And we're like, okay, well, try it. So it's a nice little tall boy. They made it tall. This is our 16-ounce can. I look a lot skinnier on here, so I'm very happy about this. But I wanted to leave this with you, man, and thank you for hanging out with me and giving me some time today. I'm excited about the season, but I also think, as we call this podcast Shared Stories, you have an interesting story, and that story continues, so thank you so much.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the beer, and I'm not a beer snob. I won't drink it unless it's cold, unless all you have is lukewarm. Then I'll drink it lukewarm, too.
This has been on ice, so I brought the cooler in, so it's cold for you if you want to check it out.
Is it noon here? What's our time? What's our time?
You know what? It's noon somewhere. So it doesn't matter. You can open one. There have been days where I've opened them early, so it doesn't even matter. Travis, good luck this season, and thanks again for the time. And we will get a chance to talk to you down the road. But I think Atlanta's expecting exciting things from this organization and this team. And I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting here with you. I think you've done a really good job of this rebuild. These things are not easy, man. These things are not easy. I give you credit because, you got to get a lot of people on board to go, we're going to do what? And then they have to buy in. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. And really the hardest part is, now that we're in the process, is not trying to speed it up. Just because we're going to have $70 million worth of cap space next year doesn't mean we should go out and throw away $70 million worth of cap space. We have to make sure we're adding the right guys at the right time. And that really becomes the hardest part. It really is not a hard decision to say, okay, this is where we are. We're an old team. We've got cap space. We can go out and use that to get picks. You got to get the picks right, which is not an exact science.
No.
And once you commit to the plan, you have to follow it through. And that's the hardest part, for fans, for me, for ownership, is to stay with it and not try to speed it up inappropriately.
Travis did not cuss once in this podcast. I will let you guys know. That is amazing, okay? Only because the general manager usually drops some F-bombs. He did not today. Travis Schlenk, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks.